Welcome to another 1v1 gaming review where we only review games that we have completed, and we'll normally only show you the first 2 hours of gameplay to prevent any major gameplay spoilers, but that's not the case this time around. I'm Sneaky Pat, and today we're talking about Rise of the Ronin. This is another game by Team Ninja, the team behind Ninja Gaiden and Dead or Alive, and even their most recent games in Neo 1 and 2, as well as Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. Rise of the Ronin is set in the final years of the Edo period in Japan. You play as one of the Blade twins. You can choose to play as man or woman, and you get to customize how they look as well. I want to go ahead and just say that no, this is not Ghost of Tsushima. Yes, Rise of the Ronin may have taken some inspiration from Ghost, but Rise of the Ronin is its own thing, and as you play it, not only will you see the difference within the open world game, but you also start to feel the difference with its traversal and its amazing combat. And my God, the combat is so damn good. If you're familiar with Team Ninja, then you should know by now that they're one of the best developers when it comes to doing combat right in a video game. I'm talking about the combat first because this is by far the best part of Rise of the Ronin. It's great starting out, and you become even better the more you play. This is true no matter what weapon you decide to use. Now, before I get to the weapons, please note that the controls are a lot. This may be the first time on the PS5 where I seriously wish I owned the DualSense Edge controller. Button remapping is in the game, but I strongly recommend not changing it up because you have to hold R1 to change your items, your weapons, and even your weapon stance. So yeah, just get used to the default controls. With those default controls, we're back to sprint with circle. This time, you can hold it down for 1 second and you'll run, but it's still a pain to me. You can change it to where you can click in the left stick, but I wouldn't recommend it because circle is also your dodge button. Again, just leave the default controls alone. This is one of those games where if you stop playing or you're playing another game while playing this one, you will forget what the controls are. But let me get back to the combat. Kicking ass in this game is so fun. You have tons of weapons to choose from. The katana, of course, but also a spear, dual wielding swords, the Adachi sword is here, a staff, hell, even a bayonet. Yes, I'm for real, a damn bayonet. If those aren't enough, you also have the also useful bow and arrow. The shuriken can be thrown as if you're a ninja. There are revolvers and even a down rifle. There are a few more in the game, but I'm just not going to mention it. But there are so many ways you can kick ass. One thing I love about the combat is your weapon levels up with you. The more you use a weapon, the higher the proficiency of the weapon becomes. You basically get better at using the weapon in which it'll do more damage. You can even unlock some different stances with that weapon if you keep using it. Those stances that I'm talking about, at first it can come off as sort of complicated, but as you play, you just start to learn that some stances simply have an advantage or a disadvantage on certain enemies. I didn't fully understand this at first, but just look at the bottom right of your HUD to see if the arrows is up or down. Blue arrow up means you're at an advantage, so your attacks would do pretty good damage against that enemy. Red arrow down, that means you're at a disadvantage, so your attacks don't hurt as much, and you can also take more damage. They're stealth in the game and it's pretty good. However, the AI can be inconsistent on how they react, so take that for what it is. I use stealth sometimes just to have an easier time with the harder enemies. Now, I would also like to point out that Rise of the Ronin is not as hard as any Dark Souls game. Elden Ring, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty, or any other Souls-like type of game. Playing on a medium difficulty is still a challenge, but it's not as hard. There are some crazy difficulty spikes in some fights, but if it's just too much for you, you can change the difficulty up any time during the mission by interacting with the Veil Edge banner. It can feel like there's a lot to take in, but if you just stick with it, Rise of the Ronin is one of the best action RPGs that I've played recently. So, let's talk a tad bit about the story. When the story first started, I wanted to skip all the dialogue and cutscenes, but I'm glad I didn't, and I suggest you don't either. Team Ninja isn't known much for their stories. I mean, I skipped every part that I could skip in Wolong Fallen Dynasty, and Neo 1 and 2 story was just boring. Well, with Rise of the Ronin, I was very much into this story. To simply put it without spoiling it for you, you're one of the Blade twins and you were trying to assassinate someone, but then the plan don't go as planned. So now you basically want revenge. The protagonist doesn't speak much. Hell, I would say within the whole 55 hours that took me to roll credits, the protagonist said a total of 12 words or less. There are story choices to be made in the game and I think it's really good. But I just wish they had some voiceover work to go with it. The story takes place in the 1850s and 1860s. As you play, you will see American flags, French and British flags, letting you know that the whole world is starting to intertwine with each other. You really start to feel the world's changing and some people don't want it to change. Some people are ready to trade steel for some gunpowder. Like I've said at the start of this video, this is not Ghost of Tsushima. Both games are in Japan, but both games are completely different. Another way that Rise of the Ronin is different from Ghost is the character creation that's available in the game if you choose to interact with it. You don't have to interact with it, but if you do, the character creation is incredible and in depth more than I would have expected. Not only is making a character enjoyable, but you can also change your outfits without messing with any of the stats once you're unlocked the Longhouse. There's a lot of parts to your equipment to keep up with, so I'm extremely glad that changing your looks don't mess with any kind of build you're going for. To go along with this, there's tons of upgrading to do. You have an upgrade tree in strength, dexterity, charm, and intellect. There's a lot to unlock. If you've played any of the most recent Assassin's Creed games, Far Cry, hell, pretty much any Ubisoft open world game, then you'll see that Rise of the Ronin's open world is very similar. The map is extensive with a lot of checkoff things to do, such as go take pictures of some really important areas in Japan's history, pet some dogs and cats, find fugitives and handle the situation, or you can even go hang out at your Longhouse just to relax. There's tons of other things to do as well. There's a few other activities you can do like gambling and archery while riding on your horse. So I would say if you don't like how Ubisoft does their open world, there's a good chance you won't like how it's done here neither. To get around this vast world, you can either travel by horseback or use some wings to glide around Japan. There's also a grappling hook that you'll have. You can only grab certain parts of some buildings, sort of like it was in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. One of the best things I do love about this open world is just how many fast travel spots there are. If you visit a place one time, you can pretty much just use fast travel to get right back over there. With the PS5 fast loading, this is my main way of getting around the map. You can also just ride your horse to take in this beautiful world. It's player's choice and it respects the player's time. I really do love that about this game. I will like to point out, with all the abilities and mechanics in this game, I wish it had more options and accessibility to play with. The sensitivity is nice, it's not slow to turn at max settings. I changed the FOV to be closest to my character. It's what you're seeing in this whole video. You can toggle if you want to hold or press buttons on some things. Again, controller remapping is here, but do not mess with it unless you have a DualSense controller. And oh, I almost forgot. I also recommend going to the language and audio settings and putting that music on 50 or lower. The music is so loud by default that you won't be able to hear what anyone is saying while any music is playing. For me, Rise of the Ronin has been a great treat and I've been eating all of it. No, it's not the best looking game, but it still looks good and plays very well. The story is great. This is Team Ninja's first truly open world game and I believe they have done a great job. They have given us the choice to choose from 3 different difficulties so more people can play the game. And you unlock a 4th difficulty once you beat it. New Game Plus is in the game, but it's in a way where you have to select each mission individually. The frame rate is at 60 FPS for the most part. There's minor dips here and there every now and then. There's tons of loot to get, and it's worth exploring to find better gear. These are some of the best, and I mean the best executions ever in a melee game. There's more I can talk about, but I'm not, like the 3-player co-op on certain missions that I didn't even try out. I think you get the point by now. I had an absolute blast on my journey, and I believe you will too. While I felt like I was fighting for justice, you may decide you're fighting for other reasons. Either way, I recommend you to also go live your own life and die your own death. Rise of the Ronin has earned my validation, and therefore, Rise of the Ronin, it deserves a smash. Before I leave, I must ask that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I ask that you all help us spread the word about 1v1 gaming. If you're interested in another game from Team Ninja that's similar to this one, I say go check out our review of Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Again, I'm Sneaky Pat, and thank you for watching.